All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I am Marcos Conan DeGrone, and usually beside me here, as always, is Ben the Jet. Rhett's got to give him a shout out, even though he ain't here. He's down in Tennessee enjoying the Christmas week with his family. Shout out to you, Benny. Hope you're having a good time down there with the fam. Tell him I said hi. For everyone, Merry Christmas to you guys. You'll be hearing this later today. So Merry Christmas Eve. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas with your family this year. But with Ben being gone here, we thought it would be important to touch up on just kind of the state of both of our teams, the Eagles and the Niners here, going into this week, because it's a pretty crucial week for both of our teams. I think when we start with the Eagles are coming off of a great win against the Washington Commanders, where they took care of business and secured back-to-back NFC East titles, something that I was hoping for going into the week, and that was a really important win for the Eagles. And it does set us up for a big game against Buffalo on the road in a potential Super Bowl preview, right? You get a good team like Buffalo who, coming off of a win against the Cleveland Browns, and, it was a close call for them. And they've had a couple of those this year. It was a lackluster game from Josh Allen, but a huge game from James Cook. And when you look at what's at stake for the Eagles in this matchup, it really is, I think, more of just a confidence booster for this team. I think the Eagles these past couple weeks beating up on some bad teams, they feel great. The vibe around the Eagles is good. That's what's been reported, and these guys are finally starting to get that confidence back that they were losing during that 3-game losing streak. And I find that this is going to be a litmus test. You played a couple bad teams, and you're going to play Washington again, and most likely with your backups, right? It depends on seeding, how you want to go about it. But I think that this Buffalo game presents a great challenge. Your last challenge before the playoffs, your last playoff feeling game before the playoffs, to really just kind of see how you stack up, because you're probably going to be going on the road. It's going to be more potentially West Coast than East Coast here. But you're going to have to travel on the road in the playoffs, most likely. And, whether the Eagles finish as the 3 or the 4 seed remains to be seen. But you'll at least get one game at home, and that's going to be huge, right? So it's not like, oh, this is a make or break. You must win this game. And this is going to be a tough game for the Eagles to win. I think, going on the road against Buffalo, that's just a tough spot to win this time of year. So I know that crowd's going to be crazy. Buffalo's going to go nuts. And I just think that when we look at this, matchup, the Eagles are getting back some reinforcements. You got Lane Johnson and Jalen Carter coming back, and this is good. They're going to be getting reps before the playoffs because they're most likely resting next week anyway. So it's good to get some reps under their belt, especially against a good team like the Buffalo Bills. They can challenge you in a lot of ways, the Bills do. The receivers, leave a little bit to be desired in terms of, the overall talent on paper, but they still make big plays. You still have those tight ends, Dalton Kincaid, that Josh Allen really likes to go to. And Josh Allen himself is capable of popping off at any moment, right? And this is going to be a game where I think the Eagles are going to dare Josh Allen to beat them. And I know Josh Allen did have a bit of an injury scare there in Cleveland with it was an ankle injury that he did come back and play through. But, that is something to monitor, especially for the Bills, going into the playoffs. They're competing for that AFC East spot. So this game means a lot to them. So we'll for sure most likely see Josh Allen out there. He's not practicing, but the belief is that he's going to be there on Sunday. So this is a big spot. I think if Vic Fangio dares Josh Allen to beat him, beat this team, then you'll take what you can. You take what you can get, because the Bills' real threat is James Cook. I think James Cook has supplanted this offense over and over again, very much how Saquon did for the Eagles last year. I think James Cook is one of the best backs in the league, and this offensive line is a good offensive line, and they know how to get pressure on your guys and to move the defensive players off the line of scrimmage. So this run game is a threat. And the Eagles aren't necessarily a stout run defense. They make some plays. They're able to get some run stops and some tackles for loss, but they have ran into this issue before where, especially like a team against Chicago, you can get ran on. So the Bills present an interesting challenge, and it's not just with James Cook. It's Josh Allen as well. He's a threat with his legs too. So this makes it a little bit more challenging. And I think that with the Eagles offense, this is a Bills defense that marred by injuries. This whole team has really been, they're the second most injured team outside of the 49ers, the Bills are. So, this Eagles offense can take advantage of this Bills defense. And this is going to be the best team to get a good sample on, a team that has a defense that, has great moments and some not so great moments. They have the ability to get pressure with Joey Bosa, but it's been kind of an up and down season for that defense. They've had good moments and they've struggled at times. So I have confidence that the Eagles offense can figure something out. Let's see if Jalen's going to be able to grip it and rip it. I mean, last time these two faced off, Allen and Hurts, it was an overtime, electric overtime win in Philadelphia in the rain, and Jalen Hurts walked it off. So I expect that this game is going to be super, intense back and forth. It's going to have a playoff atmosphere to it. So I think, again, this is just a good litmus test. If the Eagles don't win this game, unless they get blown out, like if we're talking about, the couple of narratives we can talk about from this game, if the Eagles lose, right? If they lose 35-31, it's a close game. Josh Allen just made some special plays down the line, or they were able to get a few breaks that go their way. I'm not going to feel that bad about it, and I'm going to feel pretty good that we can compete in the playoffs in a tough scenario, right? But if we get blown out, right, if we lose like 31-10 and we just don't show up and we look really, really bad, there's going to be some nervousness going into the playoffs, right? Then it's really going to be like, oh, you really did just beat up on the Raiders and the Commanders, and, they're not that great. And can you stack up against these good teams that you've been losing to recently? So, but if we win, if the Eagles do win this game, it doesn't matter whether it's close or a blowout. If the Eagles win this game, the vibes are going to be as high as can be going into the playoffs. And I think you would have to feel that the Eagles are, one of those teams that you have to be afraid of. I think they've been kind of slept on this year because they've underperformed, and I understand that. So I think that this would be a great opportunity for the Eagles to kind of remind the world what this team is. And I think if they win against Buffalo on the road in Buffalo, I think you'll see that respect coming back to Philadelphia, where they're like, oh, yeah, this is a team that you have to take seriously in the playoffs. So I think that there's a lot at stake in this game. A lot at stake. Like it's one of those things where the city's going to be on edge. Philly fans are going to be watching and hoping that they can get their statement win from the Eagles against another great quarterback, and another big win in a big scenario here would be a great spot for Sirianni and Hurts to keep developing. But I wanted to take a second here too, because I didn't address it enough. I kind of just talked about the game a little bit here, but winning back-to-back NFC titles for the first time in 20 years is something that is pretty incredible for this iteration of the Eagles that, in what's called a down year for the Philadelphia Eagles, they're, 10-5 right now, still have the potential to go 12-5, 11-6. You're coming off of a Super Bowl win. There's been a lot of turmoil. Your offense has been underperforming. Your defense has been incredible. And there's been a lot of noise in the middle of the season, and yet you're here. Back-to-back division titles, back-to-back playoff runs again, 5 straight years of the playoffs with Sirianni and Hurts. It's just, what their winning track record is just something that keeps stacking up against their perceived limitations, right? So, you got to give, I've never seen, in my time as an Eagles fan, I had never seen a back-to-back division title before, which is crazy to see. I've seen 2 Super Bowls. I've seen the Eagles go to 3, win 2, but I haven't seen them win back-to-back division titles before. So this is a really cool moment for this version of the team, for Jalen Hurts and this squad to be the ones to do that. Was a really cool moment for this team, and I think it's something that they take pride in and can look to that as a building block moving forward, especially going into the playoffs. So, keys to the game on this one for the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to try and keep this short just because, we're going to be talking about a couple of things here. But this game, for the Bills and the Eagles, again, on the road, I expect it to be a pretty contested game. I think, the Bills are a good offense that can get going, and if they get going at home, they're going to be tough to stop. But again, you got reinforcements with Jalen Carter. They don't have the same level of skill position players that other teams do. It really is James Cook as the main threat. Obviously, you have Khalil Shakir who can stretch the field, but you can beat this team. You have the cornerbacks to beat this team. And I think, the Eagles are obviously missing Nakobe Dean with a hamstring injury. And he says it's not too serious, but he's going to probably be missing these next 2 weeks, and we'll probably get him back for the playoffs. So how will the run defense fare with, one of our best run defenders gone? I mean, Jordan Davis is having a breakout year. He had a breakout game against Washington. He's been playing really well. So now you have the best version of Jordan Davis with a fresh Jalen Carter. So Jalen Carter is, a guy to look out for too. He's probably going to have some rest to shake off. He's coming off of some surgeries on his shoulder here, both of his shoulders. So it's going to be interesting to see how healthy he really is. Same with Lane Johnson. How healthy is he really going to be going into this game? But we probably, with Lane Johnson added back into the fold, we'll probably see more of those six-man fronts that the Eagles were trying to incorporate midway through the season before Lane Johnson went down. So we'll see Lane Johnson and Fred Johnson to make a six-man offensive line front to help with this rushing offense that still, needs to find its footing. Saquon had a big game last week, but a lot of those were Saquon being incredible versus the offensive line moving teams off their spots. So I think that, the Eagles offense needs to find a rhythm through the air, needs to be able to establish themselves a bit on the ground, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see those six-man fronts. So if the Eagles can get that ground game going and make life easier for Jalen Hurts, that would be a great way to attack this Buffalo defense that, again, struggles with some of these rushing teams. So if the Eagles can get going on the ground, they can establish their footing, get Saquon going, and even Tank Bigsby. I like the runs that he has. He normally gets them in garbage time, but he runs like a madman, and it'd be interesting to see some more sets with him there too. But, if we can get Saquon in this rushing offense going, I know Jalen Hurts, who rebounded really well these past 2 weeks, will continue to keep doing what he's doing. It's a big game. And I trust Jalen Hurts in a big game in this spot. So I'm not, this offense is going to be the talking point till the season's over, basically. There will be the thing that gets this team to the Super Bowl because the defense is going to do their part. And I think, again, this is a special player we're talking about on the other side of the ball with Josh Allen. He's capable of doing anything against a good defense anyway. So when this defense just needs to get pressure on him, you saw against teams like the Texans, if you're able to get pressure on Josh Allen, who's hampered right now, who may not have the same level of escapability that he normally does. This is, if you can get home to him, dare him to beat you and make tough contested passes, you'll be okay living with that. So that's another key, and I believe Fangio's going to have some disguises for him. The last time the Eagles played, it was a Sean Desai, Matt Patricia-led defense. Now it's Vic Fangio. It's the real deal. So we'll see if those guys will be able to step up. And another thing to look out for is special teams. The Eagles special teams had a rough outing last time. Jake Elliott missed 3 kicks. Will Shipley fumbles the ball, and he also made a bad decision on a kickoff return by taking it out when he shouldn't have. So if the Eagles special teams, if all 3 phases can just clean up their stuff and play well, I have a lot of confidence with this team going into the game. If I had to pick a score for the Eagles at Bills, I think, again, a high-scoring game on the road. I believe in the Eagles. But I think this is going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be a true playoff game. And I think it's going to be 28-24 Philadelphia. All right, we're going to pivot on over here to the San Francisco 49ers. I thought it would be inappropriate to just talk about the Philadelphia Eagles when the 49ers are coming off of a dominant showing, 48-27 victory against the Indianapolis Colts and Old Man Rivers on the road. Brock Purdy with 5 touchdowns, and it was and just another incredible showing by 13. And he really did do his part in this game because it was. And this is what for the Niners, I think. And again, this is an Eagles fan, who follows the Niners talking about the Niners. So I understand you Niners fans if you don't want to hear my take on this team, but I think that from what I've seen with the Niners, this offense, and that's always been the talking point, right? We knew this defense, which was banged up, missing your 2 stars, is always trying to do more with less. And Saleh's been doing such a great job commanding this defense to, get the most out of them and to come up big in big spots. And I think that the Niners' success is completely sustainable if you do that because this offense is just incredible. Your offense was missing guys too, and Brock Purdy was just having a field day. Now, we did have concern with George Kittle's ankle injury that came off of a hip drop tackle is what he said. And, but he looks like he'll at least make it through the playoffs. He'll probably play against Chicago too. It's a big game. So I doubt George Kittle, if he's able to go, he will go. So I know that this offense did just such a great job. And McCaffrey, obviously, on another 140 total yards. He's inching closer to that 1,000-yard rushing, 1,000-yard receiving season. When the last person to do that was Christian McCaffrey back in 2019 with the Carolina Panthers. So he's just on another level this year, having another incredible season. But when we talk about the Niners, what makes this team go, I think it's inarguable at this point. What makes this team go, what makes this team look its best is when Brock Purdy looks the way that he did on Monday night. And I think that, there's opportunities for the San Francisco 49ers to build off of that success. And what's really important for the 49ers now is just a couple weeks ago, we're like, okay, the Niners are going to be in the playoffs. Cool. Like maybe they'll get a wild card spot. They are now in control of their own destiny for the number 1 seed. Now, it will not be an easy path. They have to beat the red-hot Chicago Bears and the red-hot Seattle Seahawks. Both of these games are at home, though. So the Niners are in position to have the entire playoffs go through San Francisco for the chance to go to the Super Bowl in San Francisco. So it would just be a super cool situation scenario for the San Francisco 49ers if they were able to host the entire playoffs for the NFC, as that would give them just such a massive advantage with this crowd. I mean, they'll have a crowd advantage wherever they go because that's just, Niners fans are nuts and they're dedicated and loyal, and that's just how it works. But, you got to feel good as a Niners fan that with all this nonsense, with the most injuries in the NFL, missing star after star after star, missing Purdy for part of the season, missing Kittle for part of the season, having Mac Jones win games for you, like all of this stuff led to the Niners still having a chance for the number 1 overall seed in the NFC this year, already winning 11 games. Like, it's just been a crazy season for the San Francisco 49ers, and you got to shout out their coaching staff, Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, for really navigating the storm. Some years you've seen that they weren't able to do enough when those injuries came about, but this year they've been able to rebound and look just as good. And there's just as big of a threat as anyone else. They're not being talked about enough. Now they're being talked about because they're making a legit push towards that 1 seed. So they can't be ignored anymore. But I think if you were to ask, national media members, most people around, who love the NFL, who your top 3 picks are, I don't think San Francisco makes that list. And the same thing with the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles make that list. But it's hard to argue the San Francisco 49ers because of the pedigree. We talk about the 3 teams in the NFC, in my opinion, who if you're asking me who I trust the most in the NFC playoffs this year, it's the Rams, who have won a Super Bowl before, the Eagles, who have won a Super Bowl before, and the Niners, who have made it to 2 Super Bowls. No other quarterback in the field right now outside of those 3 quarterbacks, Stafford, Purdy, and Hurts, have made it to the Super Bowl in this field. So you have to respect the 49ers just as much as these other teams, because if this offense does what this offense does in the playoffs, they're going to be as tough of an out as anybody can expect. And I think when we talk about this weekend against the Bears, obviously they played on Monday night, the 49ers did, so, you get one day, less rest against a Ben Johnson-led team that's just peaking right now, playing some of their best ball. Caleb Williams, they had a huge overtime victory against the injury-laden Packers, and they're set up. They're vibing, but they have to come down to San Francisco and try and beat the 49ers, who are also feeling themselves and are also playing their best ball too. And I believe this is going to be a high-scoring game. This is just one of those things where, for the Bears, they're a team that can run all over you. And I think when we look at this Niners defense, that's going to be the focus, right? I don't think this is going to be a huge Caleb game. I think this is going to be Ben Johnson trying to establish them on the ground and make opportunities for Caleb Williams to go up and down the field. And I think this is going to be very similar to what we saw in Indianapolis. It's just going to be a back and forth affair. The defense just needs to make an interception, force a fumble here, win the turnover battle, make some plays, some opportunities for this 49ers offense to control the ball and limit possession for this Bears offense, because this Bears defense is able to get picked on too. And if there's anyone who's going to go crazy, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy in this offense. So I expect another big game from both of these teams. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. And there's just a lot at stake here. So hopefully we hear good news about the Kittle injury and, how his status for this game is. He's going to be very much needed in this game if they're going to try and keep up with the Chicago Bears. But I have a lot of faith in this Niners team to be able to get the job done at home. This is as high as a stakes game for both of these teams. The Bears have a legitimate push for that 1 seed as well. They put themselves in a spot to where, yes, they don't fully control it the way the Niners do, but if the Bears win out and, the Niners lose this week and the Seahawks stumble, there's your opportunity for the Bears, right? So this is just as big of a game for the Chicago Bears as it is for the 49ers. This is as much of an NFC preview as you're going to get, and a potential NFC conference championship matchup too. So, I like what I saw from the 49ers on Monday night, and I think it's hard for anybody to ignore. And again, they played Phillip Rivers. Say what you want about the old man. He played a really good game. But I think that, you know, it was an interesting dynamic when you watch Phillip Rivers play and you watch a guy who has so much experience, and you saw that experience with all the checks that he was making in this game. You're not going to get that same level of quarterback play here in the next 2 weeks. You have guys who are led by an offensive scheme who aren't necessarily the guys who are just gripping it and ripping it down the field. They need a lot of things to go their way, in game for the offense to really shine. So I do think that the 49ers defense, if they can just slow down the run game and dare Caleb to beat him, that's the best recipe to win this game. And the offense just needs to stay consistent, keep plugging, and Brock needs to just stay consistent, stay clean, and just keep throwing touchdowns, buddy. I mean, you're on a heater right now, Brock. And I think that the best version of the Niners is when Brock is playing this way. And I think you're seeing, Ben let me know. He's like, as soon as he was dugging, you could tell the vibe of this team changed. And I agree. I think, it's interesting. Brock has a level of swagger and confidence to him that this version of Brock seems to be the game. He's finally ramped up into game shape. He's been hurt with the toe injury all year, and I just think that he looks healthy again, and that's dangerous. And that's this is a guy that I wouldn't want to go up against in the playoffs. So this is just a great matchup. If I had to give my score for the Niners, it's going to be high scoring, man. I think this is a game that it's going to take 35 plus to win this game, and I think the Niners will do that. I think they'll hit 35-31 San Francisco, and I have a lot of faith. Listen, the playoffs are going to be very crazy. This is a year where you don't feel like there is a true number one, overall team in this bracket, and every team has their flaws, and it's just a matter of who gets hot at the right time. It could be Philly, it could be SF, it could be the Rams, it could be the Bears, it could be anybody, right? And when it comes down to January football, this is exactly where you want to be. This is a great year for the Behind the Back podcast. Both of our teams are in again, and they look great. So this is just an exciting time, and we hope that both of our teams will be able to continue to advance, continue to win. And Ben and I will, break down what the seeding is going to look like here in a few weeks. But, and obviously have our playoff prediction pod that we do every single year. So we're really excited for all of that. So I think, I just wanted to take some time to just do a quick preview of, this week's matchups and what's kind of at stake for both of these teams. And I think that when it comes to the playoff seeding here, this is exciting. This is where you want to be in December. January is just like in the thick of it, a lot at stake. These games mean so much more now than they did back in the beginning of the season. So it just shows the narratives and how they can change throughout the course of the year. And I think that both the Eagles and the Niners are well positioned. So it'll be really exciting when Ben gets back here and we can talk about, a 49ers win over the Bears and, looking into week 18 against Seattle heading into the new year. It doesn't get any better than that. So I think I'm going to leave this here, guys. You let us know what you guys think about the Eagles and Niners, who you guys think has the best chance to win the whole thing. And where you guys want your teams to be in the playoffs. But my name is Marcos Conan. This was the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. Hit us up on any of our social medias. The links to the descriptions are down below. Please give us a like, subscribe, rate, review, and follow the show. We appreciate all your love and support. And again, I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. From Ben and myself, we really appreciate all the love and support that you guys have given us as we grow each and every week. And this is just another year that it's just been another wonderful, year for myself personally. I know there's just been a lot of, great news happening. I hope that, for everyone listening, that you guys have a wonderful time with your loved ones and have a great holiday season. So with that being said, y'all, we will talk to you next week. Peace.